Basilray from VapeTV.com, and today we're not going to do a device review. It is going to be an accessory, and it's one that right now is quite hotly contested in the vape world. So today we are going to take a look at the Kick from Evolv, which I have right now in my stainless steel GGTS, and atop of that I have the UFS. So what exactly is the intent of the Kick? The Kick is a way to add a wattage-based regulation to ideally an 18650 tube-style mod that is metal in the interior. That is kind of a requirement that you've got metal that will act as a negative ground, whether that's an exposed wire. Some mods can be retrofit to allow for use of the Kick, but you know, initially the design was meant for metal 18650 tube mod. So the Kick is about 15 millimeters tall and fits atop of an 18490. Some mods, the GGTS is one of them, will telescope, and you can kind of get an 18650 with the Kick in here. So the Kick will give you some of, not all of, but some of the same functionality as the Darwin, but in any mod you already own. Essentially what happens, you drop it in, you set the wattage between 5 and 10 watts, and whatever you set it at, it's going to check the resistance of your atomizer and supply the appropriate voltage to regulate your vaping to that wattage. Now there's a couple caveats. There is about a 5.5 volt limitation to this. It's only going to be able to boost to 5.5 volts. So if you have a 3+ ohm atomizer, you won't be able to get to the high end on this. So let's get a little bit closer with this, take a look at it, see how it fits in, and do some checking. Alright, so let's take a look here. We've got an 18490 and an 18650 stacked up next to each other here. So really what happens is the Kick, which is this fancy little piece of circuitry and brass here, will sit on top of an 18490, which will give it approximately the same height as an 18650. So let's take a closer look at the Kick itself. Let me slide some things out of the way. There we are. So on the bottom there is a brass heat sink here essentially. So this is this little kind of nipple, nipple, connects to the nipple, nipple, on the top of the battery. So the positive terminal on the battery. So it sits there, and this brass piece functions as a heat sink. So you can see it's coated with essentially what amounts to being much more sophisticated electrical tape. The entire thing is kind of coated in this plastic shrink wrap to keep everything in nice and neat. So here you can see it on the top, and kind of protrudes from the side just a little bit. There's this little copper loop connected to a spring. This is the actual piece that needs to touch the inside of the tube. It's got to connect to a metal negative ground. So that's how it works here inside of the GGTS. This piece touches the inside of the tube to really kind of complete the proper circuit needed for powering of the not the Darwin, the Kick. Similar to the Darwin, but not quite the same thing. So on top we have the brass connection here. This would connect to the positive end in your mod, which would be the last kind of step off to the atomizer connection. And there's a little potentiometer here. So it is designed to use a screwdriver. Here's one from just a dollar store eyeglass kit. If a woman's got a long enough fingernail, I suppose we could use that, or just anything that's gonna get in here and catch the threading. So you can turn it both ways. If you turn it counterclockwise, you get it all the way down, and if you turn it clockwise, you get it all the way up. So the range here is between 5 and 10 watts. So we've got it set to what should be 10 watts here. The last thing to do would really be to plug this into a device. So it's going to go in and sit on top of the battery here, and it'll be the last piece between the atomizer connection. So in order to kind of demonstrate what some people are finding to be the failure with the Kick, the first thing we're going to do is take this, and this is 2000 milliamp hour AW high drain 18650. Should be fresh off the charger. We're going to drop that into the GGTS, and what I've done is connected my standard GG collector tank here to my test rig. So we'll be able to kind of take a look at resistances and voltages and things under load. Let me adjust this so we can get this screwed together properly here. There we are. And let me make a quick adjustment to a camera so we can also see the multimeter that we've got set up here. There we are. So let me make sure that we're recording here so we can get you a little picture-in-picture action as this is working. So first thing we need to do is take a look at the starting voltage. So I've got this set to read voltage here, freshly charged 18650. It's a high drain, which is a requirement for using the kick. You do need to use this with a high drain battery, but this is an 18650 right off the charger. Let's fire it up. So right off the charger, we're getting approximately 4.16. I mean, it should be right around 4.2 loaded right off the charger. I tighten this just a touch. See if we can get it to get there. Not quite. It's going to come off at 4.16 volts here. And that's, of course, unloaded. So I've got next to me a 306 Cherry Vape universal tip here. And we will take a look at the starting resistance of this atomizer. So the first thing we need to do is flip the multimeter. So let me reach across here and flip this around. Click, 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 click. Click. There we go. And let's take a look. So I will thread this on. And this should read in for us. And it's showing 1.6. Now I do have 0.2 of an ohm resistance in my actual probes here in my multimeter. So technically the starting resistance here is 1.4 ohms. So let's flip this back over to voltage. If you're wondering why the camera angle is a little bit screwy, it's so you can see the adjustments I'm making to the multimeter as well. So I'll slide this up, make it a little bit easier to view. But let's go ahead and fire this, and let's see what voltage we're going to get out. 3.9. Let's fire it again. We got 3.93 out. 3.94 out. That's a subtle difference. 3.88. We press it again. 3.93. 1 down to 8.4, 8.7, 8.9. And you can see the voltage kind of dance around here. This is kind of the problem with unregulated vaping, is that over time that number's really going to fluctuate, and you're not going to get consistency out of this. As the battery begins to drain, the max output of the atomizer is going to continue to drop. So that's one of the functions that I find to be the best thing about the kick, is that it's going to take care of some of that. So let's take a look. So 18,650 out, 18,490 in. Of course, I threw the kick on the floor. So the kick is going to slide in here. Now you do, with this, have to kind of press in the spring to get it to slide in. Initially, on the very first run of prototypes, this spring did not exist. It was a little metal tab. So the one that I had the metal tab, and it was very finicky, and there were some potentially serious issues. But this has been all addressed, and the tab was never meant to be anything more than a way for Evolv to get this into the hands of some testers. So the beta testing for this consisted of just over 50 vapors of very varying experience. So people who'd never used any kind of regulated or high-powered device to people such as myself who are a bit more experienced. So let's take a look here at voltage. Unloaded. You're really not going to get anything out of this. Getting not even half of a volt out. So with no load, the kick is not going to really supply any effective amount of power. So again, we will slap on this 306, which was rated in at about 1.4 ohms. And there we go. We're going to get 373. Now watch the multimeter here, and you'll notice didn't happen very well there. There you can see it ramp up. So it hit half a volt, 1.8, and then 3.7 right on the nose, which is going to pretty much put us at just a hair over 10 watts. What happens here is that this is not constantly polling the atomizer to save battery life. So it does not know the resistance of the atomizer until you fire, so there is a brief ramp up. So 3.7. Now some people are going to say, but wait a second, with an AW 18650, we got 3.9 out. Yes, to start you did. as your remaining voltage available in the battery is going to lower, so is your power underload. Let's take a look at another atomizer quickly. Oh, where did it go? It was just on my desk. My desk is a mess. So let's see here. I'm looking for an IO6. This is a 3.5 ohm IO6, and just to show you what we've got going, let's thread this in. So you can see, very fancy drip tip. So we will check our resistance. Let me make that adjustment to the multimeter here and knock some other things on the floor. There we go, about 3.5, 3.6. So we'll flip back to voltage. Let's fire here and see what we're going to get. 5.39, 5.4. Fire it again. You can see it ramp up. 5.4. That's going to be closer to 9 watts than 10, but we're getting to the cap here. So really the kick cannot put out more than 5.5 volts to any atomizer, regardless of resistance. So some atomizers geared towards high resistance vaping, you're not going to be able to achieve a full 10 watts. This atomizer should be closer to 3 ohms. So we'll take a look at this, and this will be about our last effective test of the power of the kick. And a quick flip of the multimeter. 3.3, so about 3.1. So not a huge difference from the other atomizer, the IO6 we just had on. This is just a standard run-of-the-mill SLB 510. 5.37. 5.37, but with this combination losing some of the resistance on this atomizer compared to the IO6, it's going to give us effectively about 9.5 watts, right around there. So this is not going to be something that's for everyone, but that is kind of the limitation. This is where some of the people have the gripe with the kick, in that it can't put out more than 10 watts at any given time. To remove the kick, you do kind of have to be able to get to it. So I'm just going to thread down on the GGTS, and I can pull it right out here from the top connection. There it is. You can stick it away. It's pretty durable. The prototype I had traveled around the world with me, dropped it several times, battery shortages, all sorts of things, and held up very well, and I expect the same from the final product. There you have it. Some people might be a little bit disappointed with the ability to only get to 10 watts. It's certainly not going to be enough for some people, but for those people who are really accustomed to traditional style 3.7 volt vaping with approximately a 1.5 ohm atomizer, this is a great way to add consistency and regulated voltage. I guess technically we're talking about wattage, but it is going to regulate the voltage, so the first puff you take is going to be the same as the last until that battery that you've got in there dies. So for $45, I think it's a pretty good buy, especially for the intro vapor who wants to maybe try, regulated vaping but isn't quite sure if it's for them, or, kind of that in-between vapor that they're really experienced but they just like lower wattage output, so lower heat output. I myself generally have my Darwin set to a minimum of 10.5 watts. Generally I'm between 11 and 11.7 watts. I still find great use out of this. It lives in my stainless steel GGTS. Like I mentioned, I've been using this since November. I had one of the early beta test prototypes, and I was really disappointed when I had to turn it back in at the end of the testing. So it's very safe. It's got lots of safety features built in, short circuit protection, etc. So there's no real worries here, and go ahead and plug this into your mod and give it a go. So right now this is available when you can get it from 4 different vendors, which would be Inhaler.com, where I got mine, Super T Manufacturing, based out of Minnesota, just up the road from me, Electronic Sticks out of Utah, and Alt Smoke out of Ohio. So check out those 4 vendors. Some of them have the ability to get an email notification when it's in stock. When these have been in stock, they move very quickly. So there you have it. A little accessory that I really like, even though I am more of a high voltage vapor. Just adds that nice consistent vape, and that for me really is the key. Check me out Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Vape TV Live. Head over to CASA.org. help out where you can. Make sure that we keep those vape bans at bay. Head over to wearevapors.com and help out my friend Link with the new documentary called We Are Vapors. Looking for monetary contributions, story contributions, and if you've got the technical skills, we can certainly use some help there as well. And above all, until we see each other again, please take care.
Life can change.